In 2008, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and right away I went in for a hysterectomy for surgery, which was miserable. And then after that, after I healed, it took me a while. I had a wound back and suffered some with that surgery, and when I reached a certain point, a couple of months later, then I went and did chemo. Right away, the first treatment, my markers dropped with the chemo, and I had severe leg pain, neuropathy, where I had to have strong pain medication. In the next year, and I felt like I was, kind of improving. And the next year, I started having, when I went in for checkups, I got anemic, and so we did other tests to see if I had an ulcer. I never thought about that the cancer had come back. I did have an ulcer, so we kind of looked at that to see if, but then after that, still was not improving, and I started feeling not good again. My stomach tired and just sick again, and had a colonoscopy. I'd had one right after the surgery and was clean, not polyps, anything. Right after the first chemo treatment, I'd had a colonoscopy, completely clean, no problems. And then when I had this other one, which was like a year, 2 years later, they couldn't even get through my colon. I was so full of cancer. And so they removed my colon. I had surgery again, removed my colon, and it was a huge surgery. Then I did chemo again and tried to do the same chemo, which was with one other little added one, which was supposed to be the best protocol for my type of cancer, ovarian cancer, and became allergic to that one chemo. And they had to switch me to a different one that worked with the new stuff. And it was horrible. I felt like I was, mentally, it made me very sick physically, but it also affected me mentally. And I couldn't handle it, so then they tried me on another chemo. I was ready to quit the chemos, but I said, I'll try one that's less. It still made me sick. And I finished that in October 2011 and thought, okay, we've got it. I've done the very best treatments that they've told me that I can do, and I should be fine. And in January of 2012, I started not feeling good and getting sick again, and never dreamed it was cancer. And by the time I got a PET scan approved through insurance was the spring, I think May or April or March of 2012. Then I had a lot of it in my abdomen. It was starting to block off my digestive system where it wouldn't work. And for months I'd been in emergency rooms. They would just tell me that, it's just some kind of blockage, go home and try to eat again. And I would go home and try to eat again and try to start eating and get sick. And I kept getting dehydrated and having to go into the chemo lab to get hydrated with fluids. And I would tell them I can't eat. And they would just, drink. Nobody was listening to me about it. And then the doctor, my oncologist, wanted me to have a test to see where the cancer was. But to do this test, I had to drink a cup full of barium. And I couldn't drink a cup full of anything. I took a couple of sips, that's why I got dehydrated. It's all that my stomach would tolerate at a time. And he was really angry with me when I went in to see him that I hadn't done the test. I says, I can't drink a cup full of anything. And he says, well, then what do you eat and drink every day? I says, I take about 2 or 3 sips at a time of Propel, that's it, a day, to try to stay hydrated. He goes, oh, well, we need to get you on TPN, because I'd asked before if there was some way they could feed me, the nurses and that. And so then they put a PICC line in and gave me the TPN, and I felt like I wasn't starving to death at that point. That had gone for a couple of months, and was hydrated, so that felt better. But I was very sick with the cancer. He wanted me to do chemo. He told me that they could not cure me, but that they could shrink it some. But I'd had a really bad feeling, and had decided that the other chemo, since it keeps coming back quicker, and how sick it made me, that it wasn't working. I'd already had the best treatments. And I know that chemo, the more you take it, the more you're increasing your odds of getting cancer from the chemo. So I decided, I knew I wasn't going to do it. And some family members just struggled with that decision, but I had a really good feeling about not doing it. And I'd heard about the BX, or the Delta Institute. One of my mom's friends had been to a lecture where Dr. Smith had spoken and had got a CD, and had given that to me before I knew I had cancer back again. And I thought, well, if I ever get cancer back, which I thought I wouldn't, I might consider this. I listened to it and I was pretty impressed. And when I got it back, I had such a good feeling about doing it. And And so that's what I decided to do. And it was, a few of my family members struggled with it, but I had my sister, who was a nurse, come and talk to Dr. Smith, and he explained things, and she felt very positive about it. And he gave me such a better chance of recovery, where the oncologist didn't give me a chance for that. It's like, we can extend it a little bit. And so I started in May of 2012 on the BX medicine, and I had very strong reactions with it. My CA-125, which is ovarian cancer markers, was up to about 187, 189 when I started. And it was an older version of the BX compared to what we have now, and I had, some pain. I had, I already couldn't eat or drink anything because I was blocked off with my stomach anyway, but I had that. But my markers dropped, and I was on home health care, and they dropped like 80 points within like the first month. And my home health care nurses are like, what you're doing is working. We already know that with medicine, that it doesn't drop like that, with that. And I ended up staying on it and improving. I did have pain. I would have, chills. I would have nausea. But it did not feel like it did when I would have the chemo. I felt like I could feel the poison going into my body, and I would become sicker. And where with the BX, I suffered with things, but it didn't feel like I was being poisoned. It was a different feeling. It was a lot better feeling for me, even though I still hurt. It was different. And one big benefit to me with the BX, with chemo, you start out feeling better, and by the end you're sicker. And with the BX, you start out sicker, and by the end you're feeling better. And so that's a really big benefit. My quality of life definitely has improved. I mean, alone with what's happened to me, what they would have done with chemo wouldn't have given me the time I've had. I've had a whole year, and I've been able to do things and enjoy my family. And because I was on hospice at one point and really stuck at home. I was too sick to go anywhere. Even doctor's appointments, was in a wheelchair and couldn't sit up for very long, and so weak and sick. And now I walk and can do some housework, and just such an improvement on the BX.
How long did the doctors give you to live? Did they give you a time?
The first surgeon gave me 3 years, probably because he did such a yucky job with the surgery. And he didn't record a lot of things, so when the oncologist saw it, he's trying to guess from the work. He would call and ask him, did you do this? No, he didn't do it. So even his decisions to make were based on what he, could guess, because the guy didn't do the fluid or anything for markers or cancer or anything. And so they never told me, except for last year, they told me that they couldn't get rid of it. They couldn't cure it. And that was it. Before that, they'd talked about that maybe it could go. But last year, about this time in May, they said in 2012, we can't get rid of it. You'll never be able to, so.
So the surgeon gave you 3 years?
Yes.
How long ago was that?
5 years ago. So, but if I wouldn't have had that second surgery for my colon removed, I would have been gone. And then if I wouldn't have started the BX last year, I would have been gone, for sure. Because I was sicker then than I've been the whole time. Before I did the BX, that was the sickest I've been. Because nothing could go through me. I was completely blocked off. So it was on the left side over here, and that's where I would have pain and swelling. And I could feel that when I'd have the reactions to the BX, that most of it was generated on the left side for me. Though I'd had cancer, was supposed to be in like 3 areas in my abdomen. And then after about 4 months, then because I have an ileostomy bag, my colon was removed, and nothing was going through that hardly at all. Just one tiny bit. I never had to dump it. I changed it when I was supposed to, but it never filled up with anything. But after about 4 or 5 months on the BX, then my ileostomy started working. Things started to go through me. And I had to vomit every day when I was like that to get the toxins out of my body. They had to go somewhere, since they couldn't go out a normal route. Then they would go out through vomiting. And anyway, it started to work with the BX to where it shrunk it enough to where I started being able to drink some, and then started being able to eat a little bit. And then in December of 2012, I went completely off the TPN. They weaned me off it. I was eating some and on the TPN. We weaned off the TPN, and so it's May 2013, and since January I've been able to sustain myself with fluid and food by just being on the BX.